I know in the kind of after that year when you sort of you sort of pivoted, you were using LinkedIn and Twitter for thought leadership, but you were also doing user interviews with people in the first 30 days of them signing up for the product. Can you just explain like what were you doing and what was the motivation behind that?
Sure. So this is like 3 years ago. What we did was we it was mostly userinterviews.com, but we had like just a landing page. And so for the people in userinterviews.com, we didn't even use a landing page. We just said, hey, we targeted product managers. Those are the people we thought it was for. And we said, hey, here's our research process. And it's going to be this kind of onboarding interview where I'm going to show you how to use this like brand new product. It's behind like a beta wall. You're getting beta access to it and it's free. You don't even have to pay for it. So I'd go through my interview process to kind of like make sure there's a lot of qualification in there, making sure that they were the right person I was looking for. And then I would onboard them on the product, and then I would follow up with them in 30 days, and almost all of them would agree to follow up, and then we would kind of submit the bounty for the payment. I don't know if they still allow you to do it that way, but that's how we did it. And it was awesome. Like we found seriously our first like 15, 20 customers that way. And then we opened it up a little bit to, trying to drive some, traffic to the landing page, but we kept it in closed beta. And it was actually right when COVID hit that we had a board meeting, and one of our investors really urged us to go out into the market and to try to like, capitalize in the moment, because we all thought it was going to be like 2 weeks. We're like, oh my gosh, this thing is like perfectly positioned for like remote, world that we live in all of a sudden. And we might as well, if we don't launch now, then the window is going to be gone and it's going to last 2 weeks. And it turned out it lasted, closer to 2 years. And honestly, that was a mistake. That was a major mistake. We should have stayed in closed beta for longer. It's this really difficult balance, especially if kind of like what I was saying about consumer products where they're kind of obvious. I'll be honest, like Rain is not the most like differentiated insight in the world. Like anybody who works in a digital environment, it's just that I was in a digital environment like years before everybody else. And so I was able to connect some of these dots and find the right investor partners and team, and we built a great product. But like, man, we invited just an absurd amount of competition that's really tough. It's tough to kind of get to that breakout when there was also this there's also this component of in 2012, like money was flowing, 2020 and 2021, money was flowing like candy in the private markets because the interest rates were so low. And so we're in a different market now, obviously, with the interest rates higher, and venture isn't as desirable of an LP asset as it was. And so there's going to be less competition. There's going to be less money in our space. And so it's good that, we have that position. But just to like really tie it back to your original question, like that was the right move, was to try to really curate the right people in and just get them using the product. And for the first year, frankly, sometimes 2 or longer, like you look at Notion, you look at Figma, you look at Airtable, a lot of those products were very, very small user bases for 3, sometimes 4 years. And then they just kept perfecting the craft until they got it out. If COVID didn't hit and we didn't get kind of like rushed into the market, I think that we would have had a lot more time to get that craftsmanship. Because what you don't want to do is build in a silo. And when you're building for customers that are in your beta, even if there's only 10 of them, but they're the 10 people that you think that you're trying to serve for, you're not building in a silo as long as they're in the middle of your process and you feel like they're pretty representative of the 10,000 people that you want to go to after that. And it allows you to kind of get further progress in your area of insight and innovation before you kind of put it out into the world. And then anybody who's like, oh, that's a really good idea. I mean, we actually had like a few of our kind of folks that ended up copying more or less word for word what we did, some of which are actually really good competitors that have innovated a lot and pushed us to be better down the road. So there is some good that kind of comes out of it, but you're splitting a little bit of market share. But most of those came from that early beta. They were like literally in our early beta trying our product. And some people even like pivoted their entire company when COVID hit, their business died. And they're like, this is a really good idea. I'll just do what these guys are doing. So that's another like counterintuitive lesson. You always hear like, don't talk about your competitors and blah, blah, blah. Like it's true. You should absolutely like build for your customer, for user. But at the same time, competition in SaaS is fierce. And I wish I would have been a lot more, I would say, careful and contained around who we were showing the product to in those early days. And I wish we would have left it in an incubation period for longer. Because then as soon as you put it out into general release, you've got a whole different set of problems that you're trying to solve. And it can take you a lot longer to get to that. I think we would have gotten to the place where we're at now faster if we weren't in kind of such a rush from what happened with COVID.